I'm Bill Auten of Auten Claims Management.
I'm Chantal Roberts of CMR Consulting, and welcome to the Art of Adjusting podcast.
Today, we're going to talk about life as an insurance adjuster from the perspective of property, auto, liability, or workers' compensation adjusters. Our goal is to bring interesting topics in the world of claims adjusting to people who are working as an adjuster now and to people who are considering a career as a claims
Hi,
adjuster. All
Bill.
right. Hey, Chantal, how are you?
I'm I'm very tired. We had a
Very.
storm last night, and well, it's
Oh, yeah.
continuing on. And so, you wake up like every other hour or whatever because some large thunderclap has when you're like, ugh. So I might be a
Thunder
little, I might be dragging a little.
Thunderstorm season hasn't hit here really yet. We're still coming off a winter. It's still winter.
Hmm.
We had freezing rain overnight, so the parking lot driveway was an ice rink. So we were out there with the salt, taking care of business, and it's appropriate based on what
Yes.
we're going to talk about today.
Exactly, because that is our topic today, isn't it? And the fact that y'all live in the Great White North, I suppose. Yeah,
Mhm.
so Aaron and I were talking about this is our first spring storm so far, but we're talking about contractors in the cold, doing contractor stuff like snow removal and who has liability or fault or responsibility for what.
Yep. When you hire somebody to take care of snow and ice at your property, if someone slips and falls, everybody paints a target on the contractor and assume that the contractor did a poor job. But
Right.
there's a lot of nuance to that and a lot of details that have to be kind of parsed out. And sometimes we insure the snow removal contractor, and sometimes we insure the property owner, and sometimes we insure the tenant.
Right.
And
In
so,
this, I'm sorry, go ahead.
well, it just makes for complex claim scenarios where you really have to read contracts and understand how they all might work together.
And that's what I was gonna say. It's like, oh, we sit here and we talk a lot on this podcast about how you need to read the policy and understand the policy because it is a passion of mine that you have to understand the policy, which is, of course, the overarching goal or the overarching umbrella or whatever you want rules that
Hmm.
you have of the claim. But you also have other contracts involved, which, like you said, is the contract between the maybe the landlord and the snow contractor or the ice removal people or whatever. So you have to look at both of those before you are able to, excuse me, determine liability and or fault or anything like that. So they're very precise, and I want to get your opinion on them because we don't necessarily have them down there. I have handled a few snow claims up in New York, but you know, there's a couple of, I guess, triggers for in these contracts, and until those triggers trip, there's no obligation for a contractor to act. And we've talked about this before, where like a landlord isn't obligated to go out in the middle of a snowstorm and clear out the sidewalk.
Right.
So we're going to be unpacking some of those, how those contracts work, and I'm really interested to hear your thoughts, because in winter people slip and fall all the time, and they assume that either the landlord is going to be responsible or the landlord assumes the snow removal or the ice person is going to be responsible. Um, so why do you think it is that we've got this assumption in these claims? Why does this assumption like kind of show up? Besides the fact that nobody wants to really be at fault and admit that they fell and busted their bee.
Well, I think the types of contracts that you see can vary from uh, over a very wide spectrum. Some contracts are going to be very broad, and they're going to say something along the lines of snow removal for the 25-26 season, X number of dollars. Well, that's pretty broad. That means you're going to remove all the snow. Does it mean you're going to salt? I don't know, maybe you're going to apply some ice melt, maybe not. Other contracts will say we will show up if there's 2 inches or more of snow, and we will salt only if you request that we salt, and we will charge you at $20 per bag of salt
Hmm.
or something along those lines. So that one's on the other end of the spectrum where it's way more specific. And if it snows 1 inch and the snow removal guy doesn't show up, he's not supposed to. He didn't. He said he was only going to come if there was 2 inches. So if someone slips and falls on that 1 inch of snow, it's hard to blame the snow removal guy. If the property owner agreed that the contract was going to be 2 inches and there's only 1 inch of snow, the property owner really has to figure out how he's going to address that 1 inch of snow. Is he going to go out there and take care of it himself?
Right.
Or the next season, is he going to have a better contract that will say, we will check on your property every morning, and if there's any snow of any kind, we'll plow it. Tough to find in this environment,
Right.
because we get a lot of snow, and you it's hard to find somebody who's going to babysit your property, 24/7.
Except
So,
you. I mean,
except
you
you
as the landlord or owner is going to be the only person who really like does that. And
or your employees. You can
yeah, or your
hire,
employees.
staff.
I want to throw you kind of a curveball, I guess, is we here at least in the South. And I wouldn't consider Kansas City so much the South anymore, but like when I was in Arkansas or whatever, some parts of the city may have gotten, 4 inches because it was coming from the west. So the western part of the city or one of the western suburbs may have gotten like 4 inches, whereas we only got 2 inches or 1 inch or whatever. Where do you take that measurement? What part of the measurement do you take? It's a total curveball, but I can imagine this coming up in a claim scenario. So if we get off topic or you don't want to answer, feel free to tell me to go mind my own business and we'll go on to the next topic.
Sure, that's another one of those gray areas. So contractors at his house or his office or whatever, and he goes out with his little ruler and takes a measurement, and
Hmm.
oh, it's only 1 inch today, so I don't have to go plow.
Hmm.
But his contracts are 2 or 3 miles away, and in this area, I don't know what it's like where you are, but you can have 6 inches of snow in one part of town and almost nothing in another part of town.
Well, you can do
So.
that too. Yeah. So I
Mhm.
was wondering about that.
Yeah, so those devil are is in the details. And if there's a situation where it should have been plowed because it did exceed the contract uh, threshold, then there has to be some sort of proof of that. Um, you know, by the time there's a claim made and even a potential lawsuit, the snow's probably long melted, and so we have to gather as much information as we can from security camera video, weather records, which are more and more difficult to get these days,
Yeah.
and um, witness, accounts of what the snow is like.
I think what I would tell my adjusters would be to and of course 9 times out of 10 we're not getting the claim until after everything is done. But if you call your snow contractor and you're like, hey, I've got a lot of snow over here, you need to get over here, and it's either before or after someone has slipped and fell, you would want to notate that somewhere and put it somewhere. And then I would ask as an adjuster, I would ask my insured, did you call and say, hey, we've got snow here? Did you take pictures? And again, tried to paper our file that the insured tried to do something about it. Would you say that that would be the correct thing?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the first things we ask for are logs for snowplow and salting logs, and not everybody keeps them, but most snow removal contractors will have some record. And the reason they do is because they're keeping track of this because many of the contracts have a certain number of events that they'll plow. So they may say we'll plow anytime it reaches 2 or 3 inches, whatever the contract says.
Hmm.
And this contract will account for 14 visits during the season. Anything more than that, we bill you per trip.
Okay.
Um, Not always, but I mean, these contracts can be configured so many ways.
Right.
Um, so they're in most cases very diligent about keeping track of what they do. Not always, sometimes it's oh, you know, a less than professional kind of a contractor who's just kind of running their life by the seat of their pants and hoping for the best.
Yeah.
Um, those are
Yeah.
not good situations. The
No.
best, the best, the best situation that I've seen is where contractors maintain a camera system in their trucks
Mm.
that record, and there's a service out there, and I don't know the name of it, but there's a service that stores all those records for you,
Oh,
so that when you are asked, it helps for billing, and it also helps for evidence in case somebody claims they fell. And we've had cases where, you know, the our snow removal guy was there plowing at the time someone fell. And even though they're plowing, the snow is coming down so fast that they can't even keep up. And we see all that in the video. That's great. That's a great defense. That's a storm in progress defense.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so just because someone slips and falls on ice doesn't necessarily mean that somebody did something wrong. In many cases, it's Mother Nature taking over, and there's only so much human beings can do to mitigate snow and ice. Now, if it snowed 3 days prior and we had, varying temperatures and nobody put any salt down, that's a little different. Um, but
I do want to interrupt
ultimately,
you real quick
yeah,
because you had mentioned something about salt, and I don't know if a lot of our listeners or adjusters happen to know this, but right now, I know last year y'all had this, and I think this year y'all are having this as well. There has been a little bit of a low. What's the word?
a
A
shortage of
shortage,
salt.
yes. Yeah, a
Yeah,
shortage of salt. Thank you. Yeah, because I couldn't think of the word, but yeah, there's been kind of a shortage of salt. And this is something that is outside of the insured's control. So the insured can't be held. Either the insured is the landlord, the tenant, or the snow removal person. That's not something that they can be held responsible for. And you and I've talked a lot about before how it's never 100% that the person who is walking also has to be aware of their surroundings.
sure.
You just can't be walking in stiletto Louboutins and expect not to twist an ankle or something.
Right. And boy, when there is a salt shortage, I would recommend that people somehow, if you're a property owner or snow removal contractor, document that somehow, because these cases, most cases, involve a fractured wrist, fractured ankle,
Hmm.
sprains, those kinds of things,
They're
bruises and
serious.
contusions.
Hmm.
But we have fatalities too. People who fall and on ice and hit their head. TBI, the number one
Traumatic
cause.
brain injury, by the way, for anybody who doesn't know that. TBI.
Yeah, the number one cause is a fall down,
Ooh, okay.
and slip and falls often result in people hitting their head on the pavement or on the ice, and those can be extremely bad.
Hmm. And
So
by the way, traumatic brain injuries, which would be a great topic for us to talk about, is not only, I mean, resulting in death, but if you have a bad enough one, you could alter the person's personality or functionability. I've handled those claims before too, where you have a normal, let's say 34-year-old, and they got into a car accident and now they're a 5-year-old. Yeah,
sure,
so, I mean,
and the damages in a case where I mean, this is going to sound terrible, but when someone is incapacitated like that, the damages part of that claim actually almost double because now you've got all the care throughout the rest of their life that they have to have, um, in addition to the lost income that they may have been able to earn throughout that lifetime.
Yes.
Um, and then on top of that, you've got the general damages, pain and suffering,
Mhm.
where if there's a fatality, you don't have the medical bill
Yes.
component of the those special damages. So,
Yes.
um, but
But yes,
you know,
we need to, you need to somehow ask your insured, whoever that is, how do I know? Because I'm in Arkansas, I'm in Arizona, in California, I'm in Florida. We don't have a saltage or a
mhm.
saltage short, a shortage of salt,
Right.
or ice melt or whatever. And there are other things, I suppose, that people could put down, like sand or whatever, but not a lot of people think about that. And it's not necessarily that great or whatever. Um,
I don't think we've had a shortage this year. Last year
mm,
we did because we had so many rain, snow, ice events
right.
that, and it would rain and freeze and then snow on top of it, and then rain on top of the snow, and
Yeah.
then freeze again,
So
and it was
it just
horrible.
like built up.
Yeah, yeah. And it was a huge portion of the state. So the claims were just so widespread. Um, this year was mostly just constant snow and cold, where I think in the insurance world, the slip and fall cases really are starting to head our way now, but this being March, but ice dams have been even worse. So I think for people in the property side, the ice dams have been, that's a whole other
Yeah,
topic though.
that's a whole
So
nother
it
podcast, as we like to
is.
to say.
It, it
So
is.
in a lot of jurisdictions like New York, where we have this happen a lot, the courts have established these situations where contractors could owe a duty to third parties, and we don't necessarily see that a lot. Every once in a while, we'll see that in insurance where there'll be like the long arm statute, or where a third party can sue the insurer directly, like Louisiana, something like that. So,
Right.
you have talked before and mentioned before the Espinal framework, and I think you've got a poster in the back, on your door, so that everybody can look at it as they
Right.
come and go. So for our adjusters who handle these liability claims but may not deal with New York and the Espinal framework, can you like walk me through that situation?
Sure. So the what it says is that in general, a snow removal contractor is not responsible for the safety of the property, just by virtue of them being hired to remove snow and ice. That doesn't automatically make them responsible, unless there are three conditions that are met. One of three. One is if they launch a force of harm, launching a force of harm. So what does
Oh,
that mean?
that sounds ominous, actually.
Yeah, yeah. So this is not a Scud missile or anything. This is
Okay,
just
great.
a
Thank you, because I was thinking weapons of mass destruction.
right. Now this is just a situation where the contractor actually creates a dangerous situation. So
Okay.
if they did something to make the conditions worse
So
somehow.
they chase someone with the Lamboni, for example, or they chase someone with their snow removal plow, for
Yeah,
example.
did you say Lamboni? Did you
Yeah.
mean Zamboni?
Oh, y- y-
Are you a hockey fan?
the thing that clears off the ice, is it not a Lamboni?
Uh,
Is a Zamboni? Oh, you're right. It's a Zamboni. Yes, but yes, I've totally just showed my ignorance. Thanks for pointing it out, Bill.
I would say that if the snow removal contractor shows up to your parking lot with a Zamboni, he's probably launching a force of harm because what that does is just it just smooths the ice out and makes it more slippery for ice skates. So I would not recommend using.
Says that that's a
Uh,
bad thing, though.
I would think.
I mean, I'm just saying. Okay, go ahead. So
So the
Besides
second
the
one,
fact
the
that I've
second,
obviously just showed myself that I'm from the South again,
well,
because I don't know
at
what this.
least not a hockey fan. Did you watch the Olympics
Yes, I did. But you know what? I do like hockey, but I go to hockey for all the wrong reasons. I'm
to
going for
watch
the fight.
The Lamboni?
I'm going
Oh,
for the
for the fights.
fights. I'm going
Yeah,
for
yeah,
the
yeah.
fights. And it sucks because like the refs or whatever they are, they're like totally like not doing fights anymore. And I'm like, dude, this is sucks. I want to fight. I mean,
Wow.
yeah,
Scrappy.
yeah. I mean, why else do you go see hockey?
Oh, the sport, maybe. I don't know. The majesty of
The
the Olympics,
grace of the
maybe.
players on ice. No,
Yeah.
I want to see some punches. Like, yeah. Anyway, yeah,
Interesting.
Zambonis, weapons of mass destruction. Okay, go ahead. That's number one. Don't.
Number one. Number two is detrimental reliance. So
Oh,
the third party the relied on the contractor's performance to keep the area safe. So if the contractor made a promise that, hey, don't worry, we're going to keep your lot completely free of ice and snow. Don't worry about it. We got it. So
mm.
they did that, and the contractor didn't keep it safe, and someone falls. That's a detrimental reliance. So
Okay.
you
So I.
trusted that contractor to do what they said they were going to do.
Okay. So I have a question though. Okay. Again, interrupting. You said if the third party trusts the contractor to their detriment. Well, how is a third party going to know that there's a contractor? Because that
Right.
contract, by the way, adjusters, that contract, just like an insurance contract is between the insurer, the carrier, and the insured, the policyholder, the contract for snow removal is going to be between the contractor and the insured, whoever the insured is, the landlord, the tenant, whatever. And so, how would me going to, I don't know, let's say the mall or whatever, how would I know that there's, I mean, I would probably know because I live up in New York because the mall owner isn't going to be out there with shoveling snow, but I guess how would we know?
So using the word third party there is a bit confusing, but basically, if you are a person on the property, a licensee on the property, or an invitee, and you're trusting that the property is going to be safe.
Mhm.
So you're not really going to have any relationship with that snow removal contractor, but that reliance that that place is going to be safe is going to it's going to first extend to the property owner and then to the contractor
Okay.
because of the promises that were made and the representations that may have been made in that contract. So so it's really the property owner that would have the detrimental reliance. Um, but what this part basically means is that if the contractor promised to remove snow at 2 inches and 3 or 4 inches fell and they didn't show up, and
Hmm.
someone fell because the conditions were bad, that triggers this detrimental reliance. So
Okay. And what's
it's
the third one?
third one is comprehensive exclusive agreement, meaning that the contract places the um, complete responsibility for the safety of the property onto the contractor.
I wouldn't think
So,
that any contractor would sign up for that.
you know, I wouldn't either, but boy, do we see some interesting contracts around here.
Really?
Oh
Really?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
do
and
they just not know?
I think I think it's cases where the property owner is drafting the contract, so it's a contract of adhesion, and
Hmm.
they slide it across the table and say, you want this contract and you want this big check here to work for us. You've got to sign this contract.
Hmm.
And it makes the contractor promise to, make sure everything is completely spotless and dry and safe all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And if they
Which
promise
is
to do that and
impossible.
it's impossible. So,
Yeah.
but those are the three exceptions. Otherwise, just because you're a snow removal contractor doesn't make you automatically responsible when someone slips and falls.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, it's kind of fascinating. You were talking about ice damming and earlier, and I think we've talked about that maybe last year about this time, so if anybody's interested, go back and look at those things. And what we've got is you would think ice is not that difficult. It, gets below 32 degrees or 0 degrees and, water freezes. And that's the whole science behind ice formation. And then you've got this rock salt. It becomes less effective once temperatures drop below a certain level, which I don't think I knew, except for when we had our really bad cold snap. So, how important is it to get good weather data? And like you said, it's getting harder and harder to come by. And so, what sources should they look at in these sorts of things? What patterns should they be looking at?
So news reports are always going to talk about the weather if it's extreme. So if you've got an extreme cold snap, there's probably going to be news reports about it. Weather records, we usually go to NOAA, the website, the National, what is
No,
Oceanic and,
oceanic,
and, and Atmospheric
atmospheric.
Administration.
Yes, NOAA. We'll put the link in the show notes, but NOAA is absolutely fabulous, by the way, just off topic real quick, because we will be rapidly hitting hurricane season on June 1st. I use NOAA to watch the hurricanes. So
Yeah. Now, one interesting, um,
I've also mentioned Weather Underground before, because Weather Underground has, if you scroll down towards the bottom, you can go to a specific date and time, and they'll give you like wind gusts and that sort of thing. While you look,
yeah,
let me know, because I have
yeah.
another idea.
So we recently, Riley here discovered that NOAA is now retiring some of its data sets.
Mm.
And the message, I'll read it right here. This is direct from NOAA. Several specific NOAA data products, such as those related to marine, coastal, and in some cases, snow and ice tracking, have been slated for decommissioning by mid-2025, affecting the availability of ongoing data into 2026. Now, we have already seen or have had problems getting data. So we're in the process of trying to figure out how going forward, because we had a whole process in place for pulling these reports from NOAA.
Mm.
We're going to have to figure out, you know, what new system they may have in place, um,
And I guess
or how
that's
else.
everyone is going to be having that problem, even Weather Underground and all of that, because I know Weather Underground usually relies on NOAA and some of that. So, excuse me, you were trying to say you were.
Yeah, they yeah, Weather Underground pulls the data from the weather stations that NOAA maintains. And the other thing I've learned about NOAA and the weather stations is that, you know, you can get certified weather data, meaning that NOAA will certify that the data is all correct. And that's really what we need as evidence in the case of a lawsuit. Um, in
Thank
bad cases, we'll actually have a meteorologist as an expert witness that
you.
can, you
Yeah.
know, provide commentary and, you know, expert analysis of those weather records.
And that's what I was going to suggest too, is if push comes to shove and it is a case where, God forbid, we have that kind of disability that we were talking about earlier with the TBI, traumatic brain injury, or there is a death and we're having to prove up damages or something to that effect. This is when you would like to get, and maybe you want to suggest to your team leader to get a forensic, mm, say the word again, Bill, because I'm going to call it as a Lamboni or something like that, meteorologist.
Meteorologist, yes.
Yes, where you want to get a forensic meteorologist to verify that this is what happens. And I would think, look, if adjusters, if we need to, we have to get a little scrappy. And we used to be this way, And we kind of got a little complacent when we got the internet because everything was at our fingertips. But if some of these things are being or decommissioned, excuse me, I'm full of malapropriisms today, aren't I? If these things are being decommissioned, then we need to get a little scrappy in our thinking. And so, what I would suggest, it might not be 100% effective or 100% foolproof, but go to that local news, TV, whatever, on the website and pull up what they said their weather was for that night or day or whatever, and put that in your file. At least it is something that you have done to show what the weather is. And then if we have to get a meteorologist, then we do.
Yeah,
Thoughts?
and even if you got the records, even if you have them in your hand, what makes you qualified to analyze them and really say what the weather conditions were at the specific lost location? Because
Mhm.
these weather stations, the ones that issue certified reports are often like airports and things like that. And then there's hundreds of other smaller weather stations that are maintained by like volunteers and stuff. And
Mhm.
I don't think, I'm not sure, but I don't think those are you can get certified records from them.
Mhm.
Um, so again, if it's a serious case, you don't want to make assumptions about what you're looking at in
Right.
those reports.
Right.
You can look at the little legend and do some analysis as to what you see here in terms of snow events and things like that. But in big cases, you want to make sure that you have an expert review that and give the correct interpretation, because it may not favor you. It may or may not favor you.
Right.
And if you've got, $1 million policy limit at stake, you're going to want to know for
Yeah.
sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. We could have seen, you could have had a better outcome in the file, or a very different outcome in the file if you would have had good data at that time, and not just wait and wait and wait. And because a claim doesn't get better the longer you wait or waiting for documentation. So,
Right.
what are some of the key pieces? I mean, we've talked a little bit about it, logs. What are some key pieces of documentation that we should be getting about? Logs, weather reports, of course, talking to any witnesses, the insured, the contractor, getting those recorded statements, guys, so very important. And I know it's kind of cringe. Nobody wants to take a recorded statement anymore, but it's very, very important because memories change because these lawsuits happen 2, 3, 4 years later.
Yep. Memories fade, conditions change. Sometimes parking lots get completely replaced.
Yeah,
And your potential evidence is gone. So get there, get the photos. Even if you are there in the warmer weather when the snow's all melted, at least you've got a documentation of the lay of the land,
right.
whether there's any low spots or potholes or anything that could collect water and freeze. Um, you can look at gutters. It's important to pay attention to how the water flows at this property. If it comes off the roof and comes out of gutters and leaks onto the pavement, that's kind of important to know
Mhm.
if somebody slipped and fell in that area. Um, and then when you're there at the site, if it's in a store or apartment building, whatever, there's people around. Just talk to people, ask them if they know anything. And 75% of the time they'll say, I never even knew that something happened.
Right.
But that 25%, you'll find somebody, you know what? I was there when that happened and I almost fell myself. And here's why.
Yeah. You tell a great story, I believe, about a diner where you had done, and it's called a neighborhood canvas, if anybody particularly cares to know the old-timey terms or just a canvas. And what you do is you go around to the other stores, the other houses, whatever, and ask if you had seen this particular accident. And I think you tell a story about like a diner where an accident had happened, not the one that the car had run into the diner, but there was a person who had been eating at this diner and they had seen the accident, and they were just a customer, a random customer. So finding that random customer again is, I mean, a needle in a haystack, but you never know until you ask.
Yeah, that was actually a story from the instructor
Oh,
at
okay.
at Vail in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania
Oh,
in like 1995 or 1996.
wow.
It's
How do I
just a
remember
story.
that?
It's just a story that's always stuck with me. But he was working on this horrible case where this man, I believe it was a man who was injured, and he was like a quadriplegic, and huge life care issues, lost income, just a huge claim, and they they there was a question about speed, whether or not this guy was going the appropriate speed. There was a hill, it was a blind area, like a blind spot in the road. So he went to this diner and he was just talking with a friend about the claim, and the table across from him heard him and said, "Oh, I remember that. I was there. I saw that car come off the hill. He was going over 100 miles an hour." And they were able to get that guy involved as a witness, and wound up, you know, getting the claimant wound up getting a bunch of money for it. So
Mhm.
I don't know what all the relationships were.
Yeah.
The person instructing me was with an insurance, background, and he may have been a co-defendant or what. I don't really know, but it was important to identify what really happened there. So you never know when you have a conversation with somebody, or start one with somebody, what they may tell you.
Right. Right. Also, a very good point to make here is to listen. Listen to what people are saying, so that you can ask those next questions, which could be, we've been talking about parking lots, and the parking lot may have changed, which is a key point because sometimes the tenant may not be in charge of the parking lot, but they are, or responsible for the parking lot, but they are responsible for, let's say, the walkway or the sidewalk in front of them. So, for example, I know in New York City, I believe, New York City, the tenant is responsible for the sidewalk that's immediately in front of them, even though they don't necessarily own that. And
Right.
and so knowing who it owns or who is responsible for what is also very, very important. And in this particular instance, you're going to find these sorts of things maybe in the municipal codes or something to that effect. So knowing what that is, what you're responsible for is extremely important when making your liability analysis. What what else do adjusters need to know about that?
Yeah, so we do a search of the sidewalk ordinance in whatever city or town that it happened in, and usually there'll be some sort of language about, who's responsible to keep the sidewalks clear of ice, snow, debris, trash, whatever. Um, it gets complicated because sometimes the code is silent about that.
Okay.
And,
So what happens
and
in that instance?
well, it gets complicated in New York here because so there's a uh, special defense that municipalities have, and you have to place them on notice within 30 days of an incident.
Hmm.
And if you don't place them on notice within 30 days and conduct what's called a 50H hearing, your claim is basically barred. So if you think a municipality is involved in New York, you better get them involved really quick.
I want to point out that you had said the municipality needs to know within 30 days of the incident, because sometimes we don't know when that is, because
Right.
we're not told. You know,
Right. We don't often get the notice of claim or the loss notice until
2 years
months.
later,
Yeah.
15, or yeah, not 15, but 45 days later. I mean, so the time is already gone. So it's not from when we find out, it's from when the loss occurred. Is that right?
Yes. Yep.
Well, that sucks.
Yep.
I would
And so
also,
the burden is on the claimant really
well, this is true. It always is, by the way,
yeah.
adjusters. Although we are here to help, it is
Mhm.
always the burden of the person who is making the claim to prove up their claim. And sometimes that applies in first party property claims too, by the way, FYI.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, what I was gonna um, say is something that I've already forgotten. So I don't know. Let's,
Well, back to the topic of sidewalks versus parking areas.
yes.
Snow removal contracts will often be very specific about who's responsible for what. And some contractors will just come through to plow and they'll say something along the lines of, look, we're not responsible for snow that's between the cars because we can't get our truck in there.
Mhm.
Um, or I saw one the other day where it had a requirement that the owner make sure that they move the cars so that those areas can be cleared. And one guy said he would come, and I forget how it was written, but I think he promised to come back to make sure it was a very, very over promising kind of contract that just said, we'll do everything we can always.
Mm.
So
Yeah, yeah. Uh, so I would assume, and this is, what happens when we assume that when there is a claim and or, well, I would assume, okay, let's back up first. When we're talking about the contract, a lot of times these contracts will have these indemnity clauses. And for newer adjusters, the indemnity clause will say that the contractor will indemnify or will, pay the landlord or the tenant or whoever hired them if a claim is filed. So in this particular instance, let's say someone slipped and fell on the landlord's property, and the claimant who slipped and fell has a claim against the landlord, and the landlord would then turn right back around and file a claim or tell the claimant, hey, you need to file a claim with the snow removal people, right?
kind of what typically happens with us on a landlord case is we'll get the lease and take a look at that, and we'll see whether or not like who promises to defend and indemnify who. And there may be no language like that at all. Typically there is, and if the property owner agrees to defend and indemnify the tenant, then we're going to place that property owner on notice, and we're going to send them a letter that says you need to notify your insurance company of this potential claim. And then, but in many cases, there's also additional insured requirement, meaning that the lease agreement says that one party will add the other party as additional insured and provide a certificate. If we have a certificate, we know who the carrier is. We'll just put them on notice. And then there are similar provisions in snow removal contracts too. So the contractor may promise to defend and indemnify everybody and add them as additional insured. Now, those additional insured endorsements can be a little tricky because some of them are very conditional on um, like only if it's our guy's fault will we indemnify you in a lawsuit. Others are primary and non-contributory, meaning that it doesn't matter if, it doesn't matter who did it. You're going to defend and indemnify us no matter whose fault it is. You're primary. Your
Why
insurance
would
is
you sign that
primary.
thing? But I mean, I get it, but
Well, that's those forms are out there,
Yeah,
and
yeah, no,
you can buy that insurance, and a lot of businesses require that you add them as primary non-contributory.
yeah.
I don't insurance, underwriting is where the rubber hits the road sometimes. We always say that's where claims lies,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
but
I would think too that we would also need to look very specifically at the policy because would this be considered to be products operations completed? And usually we don't pay for that, or there are exclusions for the operations that we've done. Is that particularly correct?
I don't think so. A
Mm.
product's completed operation. So a product is something that you maybe manufacture and put
Okay,
out
so it
into
wouldn't
the
be a
world.
service.
It's not a product.
Hmm.
Um, so completed operations, um, maybe, but I think that relates more to if you're an HVAC guy and you work on the furnace
Hmm.
and you break the furnace, that's you're on the hook for that.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it mostly where we talk about like food, where you get food poisoning or whatever, and the
Right.
completed ops is the food product. That's the completed product or completed operation. But it just occurred to me that we are talking about the CGL, the Commercial General Liability Policy, and we do have these product completed operations, and the completed operation would be the clearing of the snow
Hmm.
or the icing or something like that because that's what you're doing, but you're right, it is more kind of like a service. So this isn't something that an adjuster should be going like, oh well, this is what we're doing and so we got to deny it, blah blah blah, because what would be the purpose of having insurance?
Right, right. Um, so on the CGL, there's an exclusion for property in your care, custody, and control. So if you're working on somebody's thing
Mm-hmm.
at your shop and you break it, I think the product's completed operations may pick up coverage in a situation like that. Anyway,
I would.
that's far removed from snow removal contracts. So
Yeah, but I can see a younger adjuster getting a little kerfuffled about that. Because if you are
I'm an
clear.
older one and I get kerfuffled about it quite
Well,
a
this
bit.
this is
So.
true. This is what I think makes claims really interesting. Uh,
Mm,
Aaron and I had a discussion yesterday about the way that a deck sheet was worded. It looked like there was a deductible for business, personal property, and then the building. And so the question was then, do I apply two deductibles, one to the contents and one to the building? And again, you have to go back to the policy and read how that is worded.
mhm.
And so sometimes it does get a little confusing when you have to take all of these little bitty pieces and put them all together. So I can see how someone would get a little confused over this, like, oh, well, is the property in my care, custody, and control while I'm doing the snow removal? Well, I would argue no. I would
I would
argue,
argue no too.
yeah,
Yeah.
I would argue that it's not. So,
I
um,
think if you go to a property and do work on that property, whether it's the roof or an appliance or the parking lot, that property is not in your care, custody, and control. You're there
mm,
working on it as invitee. You're not you don't have custody of it.
right.
Um, and the insured is probably the best person to answer that question. If you're looking to figure out if there's a care, custody, and control situation, take a statement and ask, was this in your care? Well, yeah, it was in my care. Was it in your custody? Well, it wasn't my custody. I was there, but
Yeah.
so asking the policyholder those three questions will
Hmm.
get you to your answer in
Yeah.
most cases.
Wow. So when we've got these kind of claims, everybody gets named in these lawsuits or these claims, like I was talking about earlier. And there's a reason why plaintiff attorneys do it, but which is, everybody's got a pocket, I suppose. So
Yeah, I
why?
think there's probably two reasons. One is the more the merrier, the more policy limits they can bring into the fold, the higher the likelihood that they'll increase their net settlement amount. The other reason is all these nuanced details about contracts and weather records and all this stuff.
Mhm.
Um, it takes a while to sort out. And even if Mr. Adjuster goes to that plaintiff attorney and says, "We've already did all the investigation, here's all the paperwork, and here's how it goes, and we can tell you that our guy isn't liable here because you know because
XYZ.
of Espinal and
Hmm.
all these other reasons." And the attorney can look at that and say, "Well, that's fine, but my client is, disabled for the next 30 years of their life.
Right.
And I need to make sure. So we're going to name everybody
Right.
and we're going to sort this out through litigation."
And you had a great 8-piece blog uh, topic where you were talking about what happens in New York when you get like a lawsuit and the expedited, I suppose, uh, investigation that goes on. So like now, even though you get a lawsuit, you can't slow roll your investigation. Is that right?
Yeah, so that has to do with third party impleter. So if in a case like us like this, let's say the tenant and the snow removal contractor are both named.
Hmm.
They both feel like the property owner should be named here because they have the ultimate responsibility. Um, if you want to implead them into the case, you have 30 days to do that. And the reason they've changed that is because people would attorneys would use that as a delay tactic.
Right.
And they would say, well, we've got this third party, we want to involve them. And they would wait a year and a half to finally implead them. And then now they've got to basically start the investigation from scratch.
A year and a half
And
later.
yeah, so it
Mhm.
just drags things out. So the theory is we're going to compress that time. And if you miss that window, too bad, so sad. We're moving forward.
Right.
Um,
Right. Right.
Now, whether or not it's a good idea or bad idea, I will leave up to, everybody in the claims world about whether or not this legislation is a good idea. But the bottom line is it just puts more pressure on the claims department and their defense attorneys to identify third parties as soon as possible
Yeah.
and get them involved in the case.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And not just notice, but actually filing a third party action against them.
Oh, like so actually naming them in the court process. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So in closing, what should our adjusters be definitely looking at as a
Oh, all the paperwork. Get
uh-huh.
all the paperwork, the contracts, the property management agreements, the snow removal contracts, the weather records, the statements, the photos. Um, what else? I think that's about it.
Yeah.
If you get those items, you're in pretty good shape. And
Photographs of the scene.
every case is different,
Yeah, of
so
course.
you may find that there's some other documentation. Maybe you need the deed. Maybe there's a question of ownership. Um, I have a case where our insured owns a building,
Hmm.
but doesn't own the land that the building is on. That's new to me.
Oh,
Um,
really?
yeah, a municipality actually owns the land that the building is on.
Hmm.
Yeah,
That's
crazy.
interesting. Because I mean, I think I've seen it mostly before where, because I wouldn't think that it would be any different than, you know, a tenant or whatever, where they own the building or because sometimes
Yeah.
well, it's a whole different thing. Okay. Anyway, our next podcast is going to be, of course, in 2 weeks on March 26th.
Yes.
And we're going to be talking about water damage and frozen pipes, which I am super excited about because it happened to me a few well, I guess in January, so a couple months ago. And so much fun because right now we've just been getting nothing but rain and rain and rain and rain and rain. So we're going to talk about my claim a lot, mostly. So it'll be
Great.
fun.
I have one a teaser. I've got the
Okay.
biggest misunderstanding that happens with frozen pipe claims.
Yes.
It's not a huge value issue, so it doesn't really come up as like a legal dispute or anything, but it's just a technical thing that a lot of people get wrong.
Okay. You want to tease it or you want to just
I
like
just
just
did.
say,
That's it. That's
oh,
it.
oh, oh, I
You
just thought
gotta
I well, sorry. I thought you were going to be like and so clickbait 10 things that adjusters get wrong or I don't know, whatever.
well, that's just one thing, and
Oh,
it's just something that I know of. So,
woohoo.
yeah.
But you know everything, Bill.
I don't know everything, and it's not something just I know. That didn't come out right. A lot of people know this, but I wind up counseling young adjusters on this topic a lot.
Yeah.
So,
So it's going to be very important. So we will see you in 2 weeks.
yes, ma'am.
Oh, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, all of those fun stuff so that we can get more than, 15 people listening to us at any given point in time.
Right on. I'm gonna go warm up the Lamboni.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. I want to see it. Bye.
Thanks for joining us on the Art of Adjusting podcast, where we talk about life as an insurance adjuster.
If you enjoyed this podcast or this episode, please give us 5 stars and a review. It does help the algorithm pick us up.
Hit that subscribe button real quick and tell all of your adjuster friends to check this out as well. For independent adjusting services, go to www.auten.claims. And for anyone interested in working as an independent liability adjuster, go to the Contact Us tab to join our roster.
In the meantime, you can contact me at theartofadjusting.com for consulting and training purposes.